Hey, how's it going? I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and this is the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE. Normally, I don't do unboxing videos for stuff like this, just kind of random, but my dad just got this phone through his contract. Only issue, he has an iPhone 14 already and doesn't need it. He also can't really sell it because he has to give it back after 2 years, so he gave it to me to do whatever I want with for now, and I figure, you know what? Let's actually just unbox this. This was a very popular phone when it came out in 2021 originally, and it's still a very popular phone, hence the FE Fan Edition is what that stands for. So this is, I suppose, a perfected version of it, or I would hope it's perfected. I guess we'll find out. Obviously, this came from TELUS, and the box didn't have plastic all over it or anything. It just had a couple stickers on the back holding it together. Slicing through that and then lifting the top off the box, we right away are presented with the Samsung Galaxy S21. If we lift it and try to turn it on and remove it for now, we then get what's under the S21, which is not a whole lot. It seems Samsung has taken a page out of Apple's book these days. We have what looks to be the paperwork, and pulling that out, that's it. Inside there we get the charger, specifically a USB-C cord. There's no wall adapter anymore. Gosh, I hate how Apple sets all these trends and everybody just follows along. Like, there could be people who buy this and genuinely have nothing to plug this cord into. But I digress. We also get this tiny, like, quick start warranty thing, pamphlet, and then, even though I missed it initially, there is a SIM tool on the back, and we'll be using that momentarily, because turning on the Samsung Galaxy, we actually need to put the SIM card in to even get through the setup, which is kind of interesting. We go ahead and pull off the plastic from the Galaxy S21, and we're greeted with this gorgeous phone. It really is a nice looking phone. I quite like it, and we'll take a look at it with some impressions in a minute here. But here we have the setup, and again, I have to put in the SIM card. So using the SIM tool, we can pop that out on the bottom. I didn't use the actual TELUS SIM card, as that would have a proper phone number that's attached to something at the moment. I just used an old nano SIM that I had lying around, but upon putting it in, I was able to proceed with the setup, and then it tells me to restart the phone. I don't know why I have to do that, but apparently I do, so that's what we'll do. It actually took quite a while, which was annoying, but once it did, we were able to continue through the setup. It was pretty basic. I thoroughly went through the terms and conditions word by word like everybody does, except for maybe psychopaths, I guess. I added Wi-Fi. I didn't bother signing into anything quite yet. I also didn't bother with a password or PIN code or fingerprint or anything, even though you definitely should do that. Next thing you know, we're into the phone itself, and it looks gorgeous. This display right away really stands out. It's 120 Hertz, and you can tell it's very smooth, buttery, it feels great, and the colors just pop. All right, now that the phone is out of the box, we're gonna go ahead and talk about my initial impressions. We're not gonna do a full review here, that'll come later, but we will talk about some of the basics. And first off, this is the Fan Edition. What does that mean? Well, basically, in 2021, you had the normal Galaxy S21, the S21 Plus, the S21 Ultra, and then 1 year later, 2022, out comes the S21 FE, or Fan Edition. This is more of a mid-range smartphone than the original S21 was, and one big benefit is that the S21 line is guaranteed updates to Android 15, having launched with Android 11, so theoretically, the year newer S21 FE should get to Android 16. This is all going by Samsung's 4-year update policy. I think I'm getting my math right. Right now, by the way, we are on Android 13. For updates, you've got nothing to worry about anytime soon. And so, even if the S21 FE is already a year and a half old, that doesn't mean a whole lot. They're still selling it, which means consumers will still buy it. The price will vary depending on location and availability, but in the US, the Fan Edition will cost you $600 for the 128GB model. Actually, this is technically the S21 FE 5G, but I'm pretty sure all S21 models had 5G networking, so it seems a bit redundant. But whatever, the FE is a year newer. How does it actually differ from the regular S21? Well, it doesn't really matter. It basically just combines a bunch of aspects from the phones into one ultimate, slightly cheaper package. For one, the design is like the base S21, with a rear panel that's surprisingly made of reinforced polycarbonate. That sounds fancy, but it's actually just really nice plastic. Now, in fairness, it feels really good in the hand, and you probably wouldn't know it's plastic just looking at it or even holding it, although this is a very light phone, so that might be a good giveaway. Like, really, really light, especially compared to what I'm used to, which is my iPhone 14 Pro, which is kind of a chunky monster. But the design here, I actually kind of dig. I think the aluminum frame really helps give a premium feel, even if it isn't the typical glass as seen on the S21 Plus or Ultra. And naturally, this is supposed to be a more mid-range option. It doesn't look immediately mid-range though, thanks to the 3 camera lenses on the back. We've got a 12 megapixel 1x zoom wide lens, 8 megapixel telephoto providing 3x zoom, and then the 12 megapixel ultra wide giving 0.5x zoom. Notably, the telephoto lens suffers a pretty big downgrade, going from 64 megapixels in the old S21 to that 8 megapixel megapixels. I'm not sure why they did that, but I'm sure the camera's good enough, and it sort of makes up for it by giving you a 32 megapixel front-facing camera, rather than the 10 megapixel front-facing one in the original S21. The display here is actually a very nice size at 6.4 inches, slightly larger than the 6.2-inch S21. The screen itself is absolutely gorgeous, running 120 Hz by default with a solid resolution of 2340 by 1080, good for about 403 pixels per inch. Here in North America, and I think most places, you get the Snapdragon 888 processor, which even now is certainly no slouch. Performance thus far seems fine, exactly as expected. I've had some weird slowdowns, but I'd write that off as just being a brand new phone, still downloading things in the background and finishing the setup. That said, I've also noticed this phone getting quite hot when I was setting up everything, and apparently that's kind of common with these Snapdragon models. The phone was never unbearable to hold, but it definitely was getting warm here and there, so worth noting, but during normal usage, probably not a concern. The fingerprint sensor is below the display, and I did go ahead and set that up. It works, and notably, it does feel a fair bit more consistent than the one that I reviewed recently in the Galaxy S10, which makes sense, it's a couple years newer. Battery life thus far has been fine, not particularly impressive, but even with some heavier usage, I think this will get a day of life no problem, and the battery itself is fairly big at 4,500 milliamp hours. Overall here, I'm liking this phone a lot and looking forward to doing a full review of it. It's a good example of a solid mid-range Android phone that a lot of average consumers who don't know too much will end up getting, possibly as a part of their carrier deal, just like my dad did. He didn't choose this phone per se, it's just what they gave to him, and that's the exact kind of phone this is, one that carriers will often have deals for and will push onto as many buyers as possible. It's at that level of affordability where it fits a lot of flexible contracts at a reasonable price, and it's still going to be a solid upgrade for the majority of people getting it. I can't necessarily say I recommend this smartphone yet, but my initial thoughts are quite positive. I think for someone who's already accustomed to Samsung software and likes it, this is probably a good phone to go for. You get the modern experience with a huge bezel-less 120 Hz display. It really is gorgeous. You get that triple camera setup, multiple more years of Android updates. There's certainly nothing to scoff at here. Now, all this being said, and I'll probably get into this in my full review, buying off the used market might actually provide much better value than this phone, as I was seeing the 2021 S21 going for around $200. That's on eBay.com. Either way though, this is a good phone and I've enjoyed playing around with it. It's got a lot of quirks. Samsung software, man, I tells you. I could do a whole video on some of these apps and stuff that come included, but I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, maybe hit that like button and consider subscribing for more tech content. Shout out to the channel members for making all this possible, and thank you so much for watching. I'm Josh from 91 Tech, and I will see you all next time.